Hello, everyone. I think we can start our panel discussion now. And the first thing I want to do is welcome everyone again for being with us. Thank our audience for being here for the screening of Rap Squad and for hanging out with our panel discussion. I'm going to get to the introductions of everyone in just a second. I do want to let you know that what you saw was a 30-minute version, and the 60-minute full version you can see in just a few days. So it'll be on May 16th on Arkansas PBS at 10 p.m. So hopefully you'll like to see the entire 60-minute documentary and the full story. And on behalf of Arkansas PBS, we really want to thank you for being here tonight. And we want to thank Real South. As you know, the series is being shown in the 16th season of Real South. And Real South is a documentary series that is on PBS stations around the country, featuring stories about the South, like Rap Squad. And I know our first guest is Nathan Willis, the filmmaker, and he's a filmmaker from the South, the rural South. And I'm sure it's quite fitting for him to find his film on Real South. And we're really pleased that we're able to be part of that. And also we have, I'm just going to go down the line here, and I kind of don't see everybody, so I'm just going to take it a little ways. Well, I don't see Nolan is who I don't see, but Nolan is the co-producer for the project. Nolan's a filmmaker living in the Arkansas South. He's in the Arkansas Delta in Helena, West Helena. And he helped with the film, and Monte, one of the students that was in the film, is there at Nolan's studio, and there's Monte. And we're thrilled that we've got him. I might mention they've grown up a little bit. This film took a little bit of time to make. And I think Nathan might talk about the labor of love for this film. And then we've also got Ray. So you recognize these two guys from the film, and we're really excited that they're here to talk with us tonight. And they've got so much energy. It's great. There's Nolan. Say hi, Nolan. And then we've also got the two, and you will recognize their faces, the two teachers that started Rap Squad. And so we've got Jess Ronsoni and Victor Celerol, and they both came to Helena via Teach for America, and came from, I guess they both came from California to the Delta. They're back in California now. Jess works for a venture capital firm, and you might hear us call Victor DJ every once in a while, but Victor is in San Francisco as well, and he teaches at Herbert Hoover Middle School, and he's still teaching English, and I'm thrilled to hear that. I love it when teachers stay in the classroom. So we've got the filmmakers, and we've got the participants to talk about some of the issues that are raised within this film, mainly the importance of education, arts in education, and letting the students develop this program. Jess and Victor let the kids decide what their club was going to be, and they wanted to write rap songs, and in comes music, and in comes this enthusiasm for writing, and it's just so very important. And so to that end, we have Hung Pham, who is with the Centers for Children and Youth, and that's with the University of Arkansas Fayetteville, and he is the director of that program, and he is also the interim director for Arkansas A+ Schools. And if you don't know A+ Schools, we'll explain it, but that is an organization that supports arts-based curriculum in our public schools. And that is a wonderful thing. And they've also got a couple of familiar faces for Arkansas PBS, and that is our 2019 Forever Teacher of the Year, Stacy McAdoo, and her husband, LaRon McAdoo. Since they're sitting, did I say that? I said something wrong, didn't I? Yeah, I'm sorry. And I almost don't know how to back up and do it right. They're together, so I'm going to kind of introduce them together. Stacy, 19 years in Little Rock School District, And you've got 27 years in the school district. He's the hip optimist, which gives me great hope because it got hip hop in there and optimism in there. And he's a performer and he's an entrepreneur, and they have been doing after school programs and they've got so much experience. So it's going to be fun to have them involved in this. And you guys probably know our moderators for the night. And yes, we're getting to the point where I'm going to go and they're going to take over and we're going to talk. But Clarice and Kwami Abdul-Bey, and they are with Arkansas Peace and Justice Memorial Movement. And they moderate panels with us, and they're great partners. And thank you so much. And you guys take it away.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We're very excited. Raymond, you want me to call you Ray or Ray?
You can call me Ray.
Ray, love your voice. And Monte, I just want to, I want to acknowledge you guys first, because I think it starts with them. Yes, it starts with you. And it's very important that the work that you've done, the organizing and the mobilizing that you all did for the school, with your students, with your peers, is commendable. And I just want to start with that.
That new school is your school.
Yes. And so we just want to start with, making sure that we shout you out first and let you know how very proud we are. We don't know you enough to maybe not to say proud, but we really are. And we appreciate the work that you did in making sure that the future students had a good school and had a program that they could work with and take some stock in and do some great things with. And how is the high school? Have you been back to the high school? You haven't?
You haven't?
No, man. Believe it or not, I haven't stepped a foot in there. Around the time it actually opened up, COVID had just started hitting. Mm-hmm. Other than that, it was just limited. I don't think they want us to. Exactly what I was gonna say next. Exactly what I was gonna say next. I mean, I don't want a big flashy plaque in the front of the school that say, like that. No, I don't want nothing like that. Could have let somebody cut the ribbon or something, made us feel, or the whole, as a whole, the whole school, everybody come out. But what happened. I am going to step foot in there, definitely. Soon. Thank you for this recognition, though. This is the greatest recognition.
That's your school. And so
you came hard and you came strong.
So we want to appreciate you. And also want to say, before we recognize our directors, our film directors, and ask them a few questions.
Excellent storytelling right there.
Yes, that there were some things that you said, Monte, about the struggle and being in the school, and how we come to this school every day, and how the struggle is basically real, and we're just tired of struggling. We struggle at home, then we have to go to school, come to school, and we struggle.
Everybody has their own struggles.
Right. Everybody has their own struggles.
See?
Right.
And I know those lyrics. I've been
understanding the importance of aesthetics and how important what young people see and what they view. And I know it may not seem like much to some folks that, okay, well, why do you need a big fancy school? But you have to understand that the potential of looking at something that is inspiring and being able to come from having maybe a very dysfunctional, and not speaking directly to you, but just talking about most students in BIPOC communities coming from dysfunction and then going into a school that inspires you to keep going and to want more is very important. And I think that's
an environment that allows you to thrive.
Yes. And I think the story was told, and that point was made in this documentary. And I just know that, Monte, you lifting that up was a part of that, and that y'all got some real crazy flow. So I really appreciate the flow, and want to see more of what you're doing. I want to see more of what you're doing, and so I'm gonna I'm going to pass it to you, Kwami, to kind of talk about.
Well, you just talked about the making of the film and the storytelling. So I definitely want to give Nolan, Dion,
Nolan, Dean, Nathan.
Yes, indeed. I want to give you an opportunity, both of you, to tell us. You wrote the film, you filmed it, you put it together. Did the message that you want to be told, was it told the way you wanted to be told?
Well, I'd love to take full credit for this film, but I was not the director. Nathan, why don't you jump in on that first?
Thank you, guys. I'm so glad that you shined a light on Monte and Ray first and foremost, because this is their story. This is their school, as you said. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, when speaking of telling the story I wanted to tell, this was not the film that I thought I was going to make when I first came to Helena to tell this story. Nolan told me about Rap Squad. His wife, he's lived in Helena for years. His wife is a teacher, and he was friends with Jess and DJ Victor, and he knew about the Rap Squad, and he told me about it. And I came down to Helena from Little Rock and thinking it was going to be a 10 to 15 minute documentary that we were going to make, and it turned into something much bigger than that. Clearly, we saw a 30-minute version. There's also a 60-minute version, as Casey said earlier. So yeah, I wanted to make this film because I'm the product of a solid arts education and school program. I went to a film class in high school. My public high school had a film class, which I'm very grateful that I was able to attend that. And but like you guys alluded to earlier, I was already making films with my friends, and it just happened that my school program had a film class that I was able to go to, and that had structure, and that gave me a reason to make more movies and to teach me more. So so much credit to Jess and DJ for creating this program that they were already writing, like Ray and Monte were already writing lyrics, they were already writing music, they were already writing poetry, and they just gave them a platform to do that in a constructive way. And so yeah, and I think the fact that I entered this thinking it was going to be a short documentary.
Yeah, you know what you're signing up for.
But I think that speaks to what Rap Squad was, it's
Exactly.
The fact that it was able to morph into this thing that I don't even think Jess and DJ realized when they created Rap Squad, that you were literally going to be responsible for a new school. I think that just speaks so much to the power of this program and arts education. And I legitimately hope this is the last time I have to turn my mic on, because I want the world I want the spotlight to be on you guys, because this is your story.
I can't take it all, Nathan. We can't take it all.
Before we move from you guys, I want to know who was the drone pilot?
Oh, that was him.
Was it you, Nathan? Okay. You made that video pop. You really did. I appreciate that drone work.
Yeah.
Nathan, where did you get your drone certification?
Well, when this film was made, I did not get the certification. That was
all that information, Nathan.
But that's another reason. That's another thing that the Monte and Ray were involved in that, because I had my drone with me, and they were like, we should make a drone music video. And
he blew our minds when he just pulled it out right at the right moment.
That was the way that they were involved in the making of this film. Behind the scenes, clearly they're the stars of it, but behind the scenes, they were also involved. So, but yeah, we made that drone music video, and originally it was just a cool music video. But
you guys should have seen his face when we was climbing to the top of the abandoned tree. He was literally going through rubble on stairs that was just breaking. We get to the top, there's holes in the roof, and he's like, guys, watch your step. Monte, he's sitting on the edge, and he's like, oh my gosh, Monte, you're gonna make me have a heart attack. He's sitting on the edge.
One of you dies.
And you know what, Nathan? I think it's important for students to learn skills like how to be a drone pilot. And I mean, especially now, after school programs having that option of being a drone pilot, because the industry is so
it's wide
open for that. And I know there will be students who would benefit from having that license.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
thank you.
We're getting our license real soon.
Yep.
DJ and Jess. All right, so Teach for America sends you to Phillips County, and you go cause all this trouble. Tell us about that.
Do you want to go first?
DJ.
We did. I did choose to go to Arkansas. The Delta was my top choice because it was the highest need region at the time. And my logic was, if I'm going to do this program, I might as well do it all the way and go where we'll be the most useful. So we did choose to go there. That being said, it was, of course, some culture shock coming from California. And then I remember when all this Village stuff was happening. I remember other people saying, you Berkeley teachers, of course, you got the kids to do some crazy stuff, but it was really them. And we just followed their lead. So they did all the creative hard work.
So you just facilitated their creativity. That's what you did.
Yeah. I think really I just we opened our classrooms for a few hours after school, a couple times a week, and just let their creativity run wild. And I, hope schools look more like that in the future, but really they just needed a space. That was it. They really did the rest.
A space meaning specifically the closet.
The closet in my classroom. Yeah.
It was nice. Victor, talk about the closet. And
well, first of all, I just want to say with the walkout, it was really Raymond and Monte's class. They organized it, from the ground up. We just, we were teaching our curriculum. We were doing a nonfiction unit. We watched the film 13th, and we were talking a lot about civil rights movement and organizing and what grassroots organizing looks like. And then they were the ones that were like, well, if we're going to learn about it, why can't we do it? And to be honest, it made me pretty nervous because I was like, well, I'm not going to stop you. That seems a little bit, that wouldn't seem right. So I'm not going to stop you. And I'm like, I'm going to support you from a secondary role, but you have to decide that you want to do it yourself. And they did. They took over. They did all this covert planning on Saturdays, secret meeting places. So they really took the lead. And then on the day of the walkout, it was definitely not approved by administration.
Anyway.
But yeah, definitely not. Pretty much the opposite. There was a moment where there was a line and the principal was like, anyone who crosses that line, 14-day suspension. And they were like, I'm like, all right, guys, it's your decision. So they.
Hello.
Yeah. I remember Nathan was actually living 2 hours away at a time, and I'm in Helena, and I get a text from Nathan saying, the kids are walking out. Can you grab your camera and go up to the high school right now?
I didn't think that we planned
right
it.
now.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the closet. I didn't know anything about recording or anything like that, but I just looked up, how to build an at-home studio, and we always wanted it to have a tactile feel. We wanted it to be something that they could hold on to, So that's why we did hoodies that had Rap Squad logo on it. And, if you made the team, you got a package, you got headphones and you got a hoodie and you got,
Yo, and shout out to them for all of that, because a lot of that kept us encouraged throughout it was something to look forward to and everything. And you just wouldn't expect something like that to come from teachers, to come straight out of their own pocket. Here's some headphones, bro. Do what you got to do in class. That's you.
And Monte, to bring that up, that's definitely a great point to bring in Stacy and LaRon McAdoo, because these are teachers that you're talking about right now. So definitely you two What did you get out of watching that film, and how does it translate into what you've been doing for the last decade and a half, nearly 2 decades?
Well, first of all, Ray and Dante, I wrote down Monte. I'm sorry. I wrote down in my notes bars, like y'all played, okay. And I think that what happened, I think that as soon as the world recognizes the genius the genius and creativity that it takes to do that wordplay, to think of how to put words together, like that truly is genius, especially when you're freestyling. And then when you get to researching and rewriting, you're scholar practitioners. And as soon as academia can realize that this wouldn't be abnormal, this would be the standard, because who was it? I think it was Ray that said, when you were learning about the movement, and you said, what better way than to be the movement, right? And that's what I feel, is that if teachers teach through the arts, not with the arts, but we use the arts to inspire and to actually teach our content, then every kid would be engaged. Every kid would love education. And we would all the society would be better, because they would be doing exactly what you guys did. I think engaged youth and activists that are young people, they grow up to be involved citizens.
So as for me, man, kudos to everybody on the panel. You know, everybody has a role in what they did, and realize that you're part of a continuum. You know, hip hop, as I was looking at the stuff and just thinking about this over the last 24 hours and more, I thought about the teen talent shows that we used to throw in the 90s. I thought about Kuma Arts Academy that happened late 90s. I thought about the hip hop after school program that actually CNN came to Little Rock and took beats from people and used it as their music beds during the news. Wow. And then I thought about AETN coming to Hamilton Learning Academy when I was there, and allowing the kids just to make their own documentary. And then I think about my wife's program, Righteous Community, where you have young creatives doing this all the time. So you're part of a continuum. And even more powerful than that, hip hop started just like what you're doing. You know, I happened to start listening to hip hop in 1980. Just to let you know where the hip optimism comes from. So
I wasn't even out of
your day. I know. But look, man, you are part of a continuum, because realize that it's a $1 trillion industry now. And people that pioneered this game can be proud of that. And you should be proud of the power that you exhibited, because you exhibited the same power that other hip hoppers did. Nathan talked about turning a closet into a studio. Well, Russell Simmons said hip hop didn't invent anything, but it reinvented everything. It recreated everything. So that's what you all did. It's a closet to somebody, but when you saw it, that's why it's a difference between a view and a vision. A vision is something only you can see. A view is what everybody can see. But you all vision. So anyway, I'm gonna get. I have a whole list of notes, but I'll wait till y'all come back to the hip optimist in the year. Anyway.
Pastor McAdoo coming out.
Now, here's one thing that is vitally important, that when you guys get the opportunity to watch the full version, please watch the full version, because it really delves into the story behind the story. And the story behind the story is that this program was not a program that was actually even wanted by the administration at that school. And DJ and Jess, they had to create GoFundMe accounts and everything just to fund it, because they could not get anybody to come out and to support it. And DJ, could you talk on that for me, please?
Yeah, so it was dual resistance, right? We had some resistance from some of the older folks in the school who were like, they were buying into the narrative that there's a lot of negative stereotype and negative topics in hip hop, right? So they were looking at like the industry rap standard and being like, we don't want that in school. And then from the younger people, they were on the opposite side. They were like, we don't want you to turn us into Nickelodeon rappers, right? So it was, there was this fine line that we had to walk. And that's why we came up with that rule where it's like, all right, well, no one can take your truth away from you. So if it's happened to you, write about it. If it's happened to you, speak on it. And nobody can stop you from doing that, And, me and Jess got lots of questions from people like, oh, what, do you like make music? Do you rap? And it's like, that goes back to what Stacey was saying, we just provided what the children wanted, and if they had demanded to do French ballet, we would have figured out how to do French ballet, but it's just that rap and hip hop was something that they were already doing, and they wanted a club that reflected their interests. So that's what we made happen, but it had nothing to do with like trying to push any personal narrative on it. We were just like, all right, like I see these students that are extremely talented and extremely intelligent writing notebooks full of lyrics, but not turning in essays in English. So what does that show you, right? So it was just a way for us to tap into their existing talent.
I want to segue into that, what you were saying, Victor, about how, and Stacey, about the importance of tapping into their talent. And I would say about a year or so ago or two, I went to Chicago to a sustainable community schools training. And what they were doing is exactly what Jess and Victor did for the students. Part of that is making sure that they had programs that reflected who they were in the community and how they were able to express themselves in the best ways, in the ways that they needed to, and not in the ways that the school necessarily wanted them to. And Hung, I want to talk, Fam, I want to talk to you about that, because I know that you work with after school programs and everything, and the sustainable schools or programs, and I want, or A+ schools. And I really want to ask you about the importance of the state being involved in these programs, and not in it being the importance of a top-down approach rather than this bottom-up approach that most organizations, right, that most organizations have to go through to either come out of their own pockets and see these dreams that these young people have realized. Can you speak on that and the importance of it?
Sure. And first of all, thank you for inviting me on this panel. I think that the documentary has shown a lot of the possibilities and power of the arts, and in this particular case, after school arts and education programs. And I just wanted to preface this by saying that in both the Center for Children and Youth and Arkansas A+ schools, we engage students and educators in all levels, both in school, in professional development, and out of school learning. And so this particular case, we're going to focus on after school, but really both of our programs that I'm currently directing embrace all the different ways that arts can come into the schools. When you're talking about funding, I think that, I hope I have an internet connection possible issue.
We can hear you.
I really give a lot of props to Victor and Jess for just how scrappy they were in terms of finding funding and doing what was necessary. But as we kind of recognize, that's not necessarily the most sustainable model for these programs. And there are different avenues for funding out there, whether it is private agencies and philanthropic organizations often give money. At the federal level, there is 21st Century Community Learning Center, but the state can also play a role. And something in Arkansas that I think is worth noting is that a few years ago, the Arkansas State Legislature passed the Positive Youth Development Grant Program, which first identified and recognized the value of out-of-school learning. It also outlined what they saw as important outcomes that would come out of high quality out-of-school learning, whether in the summer or after school. And then they gave a structure of how those programs might be funded through the state. However, to date, that program has not been funded, and so it hasn't actually been enacted yet. So there's some promise there and possibility, but it remains to be seen where that would go. So I think we, as inspiring of a story as Rap Squad is, I think it's really smart to think about those issues, funding and sustainability.
Yes, and going along those lines, we do have several questions in the chat over in OV. This question is, if we're looking for a way to support individually or through a larger vision, such as a foundation, what are some ways that we can support you? And that wasn't directed to anyone, so please, everyone, feel free to answer.
Well, I'm going to jump in.
Yes.
For Rap Squad, one thing that I would love to do, and Nathan and I, this is just at like the beginning stages of talking about it, is we'd love to find a way to do an impact campaign where we can take our film and do panels like this with numerous education organizations throughout the state or throughout the country and continue on this conversation. We will need to get grant funding for that, to hire an impact producer who can put that together for us, because we don't have the margin in terms of time to bootstrap it like we did the film. So yeah, if you want to reach out to us, reach out. Yeah.
And one thing that I was able to do at the alternative school, but other places hadn't been so open to it. When I currently teach not in an alternative school, but they kind of allowed free reign for the teachers to do some things. So I created something called the Forbidden Nation, where it was simply about what happened here, where you don't pour in. And my philosophy of teaching is not that we pour into children, we pull out of children. So if you go in with the intent of pulling out whatever's there. So I had young men who were fashion designers. They were creating fashion. I had some people that were singers, some people that were visual artists, some people, whatever they had within them, it was about pulling them out. And as someone said earlier, finding that person to rally them to and give them to. So I would say the way to support is lobby for that position in school. I would say if you had like a creative arts program or teacher or a block or something in their schedule when they can actually be free to explore in ways beyond just your normal visual art, choir, band, where you could actually create your own music. And so there have been programs I've seen at the Boys Club, Life is Music or something like that, through the Little Rock Boys Club. There have been different programs that kind of have manifested what I'm thinking about. And if that was actually in public schools, I think that position, that curriculum would be great.
See, and I don't even think that you necessarily, that it takes a lot to do it. I think that just like y'all said that the Ray and Monte were already writing and everything, kids already understand how to create. They really for real just need the space. And even within the school, there are individuals, there are teachers who already know how to do, they know how to produce, they know how to do all of this stuff. So you have everything in-house. You just have to communicate and be willing to do it together.
Well, education comes from the Latin word educare, to bring out that which is already in.
No,
so,
listen.
Did you see him? He was right on it. Jess, what say you about this? Because I really believe that you have a lot to say, and it's because it's interesting, because you and I are from the same vein. We're both former classroom educators. So what is it about this state of education that has you as a former classroom educator, and what is your vision on what we're talking about right now, your view?
On education? Just that? I'm just kidding. Yeah, I do think a lot of the role of teachers should be to give the kids the space to do what they already want to do, and then at some point just get out of the way and let them go, let them do what they already care about. And so I like what you said about teaching not being the banking system where you're like putting information into kids. And I think a more democratic view of education where the kids teach each other and teach adults is just a lot more valuable. And you know, when we did the club, like I knew, unsurprisingly, like I didn't know a lot about rap, and I just thought, you know, this is what the kids want, so let's give them the space to do what they want. And I feel like I learned, I mean, this sounds terribly corny, but I feel like I learned more from them than I taught them. And just like listening to their music again, watching the documentary over, they're just so incredibly talented. And I just feel like teachers should feel lucky to be a part of their lives and to be a part of their story.
Can I jump in there as well?
Absolutely.
Something, you know, I think that the documentary and talking about Rap Squad kind of showed in spades is just how powerful the arts can be in education for students, but something that is often overlooked is how powerful it is for teachers. Making their teaching more authentic, more joyful, more effective, showing their fullest selves, because I don't know a single teacher who doesn't engage with the arts in their personal lives. Why do they like take that and leave that at the door when they come into the classroom? And so a large part of my job is working with teachers, and it's really heartening to hear how when we show possibilities and strategies for arts integration, they just light up and say, like, you know, they feel like, you know, their teaching has opened up and that they can do a better job and a more impactful and joyful job at their work. So I think that shouldn't be overlooked either.
And one thing that hip-hop really always...
Oh, go right ahead.
One thing that hip-hop showed was when you're breakdancing, you're not robbing anybody. When you're thinking of the perfect bar, you're not trying to break into a house. When you are perfecting your skills on the turntable or whatever it is, when you're learning how to produce, you're not carjacking anybody. And the other part of the coin is this: the arts are also known as disciplines because you do them over and over and you try to perfect yourself. It's about self-perfection. It's about self-discovery. It's about finding out how to release emotionally. It was a lot of emotional stuff that happened to find your therapy, to allow yourself your own space in your head, because you're able to outlet some of those things. So the arts are more than just this thing that people have kind of stereotyped them to be. And so one job as an art teacher at my school, I tell them my primary mission as an art teacher is not to create artists out of every student, it's to create art lovers so that they will pay for a ballet. They will go to a movie and won't bootleg it all the time. They will go to a streaming service, maybe on their own account and not their uncle's.
Yeah, and we were a part of Arkansas A+ in the early 20s, and I thought you were gonna mention the philosophy behind it. Essentially, what A+, the heart of it is the arts are essential to how students learn and how teachers teach, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I was going to say that's a great point, because there's a something that often so there's two sides of it. There's the discipline of the perfection. Everyone should learn how to cook some food. You don't have to be an amazing chef at everything, but you're going to find things that you like, and you want to perfect those dishes, and you want to make them a little bit better every single time. Now, at the same time, that becomes a craft. At the same time, it's also just a natural process of life. And it's like eating, it's like breathing, it's like bathing. Everyone should bathe every day, and every child, or every other day, or 3 days, or whatever your rule is. You know, crunchy, but you know, you should. But to draw is a natural thing to do as a human being. You know, I have 2 toddlers, and so I get to see this, and I have to remind myself that drawing is good for us. Writing is good for us. Coming up with stories, telling your child stories at bedtime is something I have to come up with out of the spot. That takes constant creativity. That's just a good process for people to get into. And arts education affirms that whenever a kid is transitioning to that phase to where they want it to be taken seriously and they want to be seriously good at it, they can be affirmed in that and given the space to do it. At the same time, it opens up the mind of the teacher to force them into that. We let go of art. We tend to specialize. And we say that was a good thing to do in elementary school, maybe in middle school. But as you move forward, say you're an investment banker. You know, I don't know very many investment bankers personally who spend a whole lot of time doodling. And I think that it's just something that everybody should do, whether or not that it's a craft. And for teachers, yeah. So going back to what you're saying, Hung, I can see how that would just open up their teaching in so many different ways. Just like any type of art that I introduce into my life opens up my filmmaking in a new way.
I want to ask a question of Ray and Monte, and then after that, we're going to ask a couple questions in the chat. How, and I want to say that I appreciate the vulnerability and the openness, Victor, of your story. And I wanted to ask Monte and Ray, how did Victor/DJ's story, how did that affect you, and how did it what did it do as a
his story as in his upcoming
for you, the story of his past, his childhood, his life? What is that like for a student to know their instructor? Some parts of there's some transparency and some vulnerability there. How does that affect you, and how did it affect you?
Monte, I'm gonna go ahead and jump on first, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
That really, so the Celeron we seen after school or even on lunch break or in between classes was really different than the Celeron that sat and actually taught us during class time. Like you said, he was open. And with that, just like around the world, you give respect, you get respect. In that case, you give trust, you receive trust. So with him opening up, it just made it clear that, hey, this is a person that I can trust. This is a person that genuinely loves me, that genuinely wants to see me prosper, can see the potential in me, even though I don't see it myself. Celeron has told us many life stories, from football to his mother to college, everything. And all of that was just really like motivation. It was really motivation. And also with that, we got to an understanding. And like Ms. Rosani was saying, she might have learned more from us than what we learned from her. Is really 50-50, half and half. Because with that, it showed me that all teachers aren't the same. They're not. Like, there was teachers that would be strictly set on a blueprint. That set has been set in stone for multiple years, I understand that. But they took that blueprint, stuck to it, but just slightly it up just a little bit to the point where, to the point where it accommodated our needs. Like, we needed that gratitude, not immediate gratitude, but that gratitude, like, hey, okay, we tell you to do this, we tell you to do that, we tell you what you're not doing right, but do we ever tell you good job and really mean it? Like, good job, don't just good job. No, it's my really. Mr. Celeron would grab my shoulder and be like, bro, I'm so proud of you. And you could just feel the heart to heart. Like, it was like no other teacher would sit there and actually do that. So definitely, I will say they understand more than a regular teacher teacher. They are actually, or should be, role models for other teachers, because that goes to say they understood every child has their own outlet. Okay, you getting onto a child beating in class on the table. Okay, don't get on to him, put him out of class, send him to ISS, potentially get him suspended. Go buy him a drum kit. He might just like to make beats. Go do that. Okay, I'm writing in class, we passing those, yada yada, we laughing. Okay, you like to talk? Come in front of the class, let's say some poetry or something. Read this book out loud. You know, just get them involved instead of always downgrading them, telling them you can't do this, you can't do that. They always uplifted us. Celero, that 13th set it off.
13.
Set it off. And like
cities.
Definitely, like it was all according to the blueprint, but he edified it. Like he made it his own. It was unlike anything I've ever seen. And that was just the faith of a mustard seed. He just put it there and just walked away. He said, you guys do what you do. I'm like, well, I'm not just gonna sit here. I'm hyped. I'm pumped. I'm pumped. I'm ready to do something.
Ray, you
So we
said
did.
something, and it was, everything was beautiful. And I'm trying to hold back the tears and and excited at the same time to hear how transformative that was for you.
Yes.
And I just want to say, you spoke about student beating on the table and noticing what's going on and being very present with your students and looking at what's happening in the classroom, and how the other piece of the sustainable school or the community school is restoring or restorative justice. And so there's different levels of that. And that to restore a student, not punish a student, but say, okay, since you're beating on the drums, I need for you to make me some beats instead of you have detention. And I think you hit on something that is very important, is that we have to start restoring our students and not punishing them in ways that we don't understand. If we don't understand trauma, if we don't understand that informed care, and we don't show up for that, then we have to start being taught other ways. And so thank you for that. Monte, did you want to weigh in on?
Well, he pretty much hit it on the head, but for me, it was kind of like, because like I already wasn't from here, so I felt like the way my life was set up, like I was supposed to be like, you know, mischievous or anything like that. But once meeting Celero and Mr. Ozani, it was like they came from Cali, okay, same place I came from. They don't even seem like they are bothered by the things that they think about, but they still come here, you know, put the smile on and try to make sure we get an education. And like at first, I was just writing for me and Celero, like literally every morning. We would have our journals, and we would write down our poetry and stuff. And he just told me to keep writing for us. Like he got enjoyment out of reading my pain, just like I got enjoyment from reading his. He was a poet. That's another thing, like with teachers, when you said the teachers really, I don't know how to put it, they really influence us just by being themselves, but at the same time, they, you know what I'm saying, they put off themselves because they feel like you got to be professional. But at the same time, like things like this would have never happened. I feel like I'd never be here without Mr. Celero. Seriously.
Oh, that's peace.
Thank you.
We have several questions in the chat, and I'm going to take 3 questions that were sent by the same person and weave them together. And this question was actually directed to Hung. It says, how do you take this discussion about being artists into being arts administrators, to range from fine arts to folk art, to go from handing them a drum machine to teaching them how to make a drum machine?
Whoa. Okay. Well, my mind is like is going in a couple of different directions with that question. I think so. How do you go from arts to art administration?
Yes.
I think big picture speaking is for me, setting aside time to think strategically and not just get so caught up in the immediate moment of what you're doing. Because if we're trying to think of how to expand or grow, a beautiful thing that you're doing within a classroom or within a school or within a district or within a state, there comes a time that you're going to need to kind of think strategically about how to do that with fidelity to reach more people. So I think, there's no like singular playbook for how that might go. That's one way that my mind is thinking. The other way that I'm kind of interpreting the question, and so I apologize if I'm not interpreting it correctly, is the idea of how do you go from arts as it's practiced within a school setting to art afterwards, of like being a museum educator or in a gallery space or something like that. And I think again, there's not a singular way that is like the recipe or playbook for that. But I think part of it is having the introducer or the educator that is bringing in the arts to show these examples of art's broader relevance, and not just thinking about it within a too confined context of the lesson or the after school club or something like that, but just sharing a bit of the expansiveness. Maybe that includes taking a field trip or bringing in a guest who is an arts administrator. So apologize if I'm not interpreting the question correctly, but I have like 3 other interpretations of that question that I could give answers to. So hope someone else has some thoughts on that.
I wanted Nathan to weigh in just a little bit on that. I know you want to kind of be in the background, Nathan, but I really think that you have some insight on that question.
I mean, I go back to what I say at the beginning about how I thought this was going to be just a short film about how this rap squad was helping these individual students deal with their personal issues and speak to self-healing. And it turned into something that was much bigger, and it was self-healing, but it was also about healing their community. But I think looking at it now, I think the film would have been just as powerful, and it would have showcased the arts and how important they are if it would have just been about self-healing, if it would have just been, and again, we only watched the 30-minute version. In the hour-long version, we were able to talk about, and I don't want to speak for them, but Monte and Ray, they talk a little bit about their history, about how Monte's father has passed away, and how Ray's mother is very sick, and how he is always stressed and trying to care for her, and how Rap Squad gave them a way to cope with those things. And I think it would have been just as a powerful story if that was the film, if they wouldn't have fought for this new school. I think it would have showcased the power of arts. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear maybe Monte and Ray's opinion on that.
Monte, you go first.
No. Right. You got it.
Nope, I went first last time. Your turn. Why we both stretch at the same time? Come on.
Can we repeat the question one more time? Because I was just, kind of dazed.
I had a quick reflection on that question. Because I think that kind of is maybe the problem more broadly with education, is we're so outcome focused. Like that question is like, all right, so if art, then what next? And it's like, how about we just get the art first? Like let's focus on getting good arts programming and arts funding in schools first, and then we can worry about kids becoming art administrators. Like Rap Squad didn't start the way it ended. Like it started with like a mic and a crate in a box with t-shirts stuffed around it. Like it didn't all look pretty. It didn't look great. It didn't look like, it wasn't polished. It was like, and I think that's kind of the model that I would think of as, that's just such a outcome-based question, of like, how can we control this and that's where data sheets start coming in and spreadsheets. And I think that's the worst part of education, is all the numbers and data. And
for real.
Then you got to start justifying your funding that you get with, points on a spreadsheet and outcomes. If we had to do that with Rap Squad, it never would have become what it was. The numbers didn't add up half the time, like it didn't make, we get very like industrialized with our education. It's very outcomes based and objectives. And we try to treat kids like you know, like we're the CEO and they're like the worker bees, and it doesn't work that way, you know. So that's what comes to mind when I hear that question.
I'm really glad you said all of
that.
Go ahead, Ray.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really glad he said all of that because he said the word statistic. Like I was saying about the blueprint. Really, to most teachers, just another number. When they go for class count, they might say a name, but to them, they're just checking off numbers. You know, we're just another statistic, another number in a system. So at that point, you know, you just, like Celero and Rosani did, you have to get down to the level of that child, to their needs, you know, get down and relate to them somehow, because not every child is just going to open up and be open and tell their problems. Because when you go to school, it's a facade. I'm not gonna cap. Like, I'm not gonna tell no story. It is a facade for every child. And I cannot take the fact that a child says, oh no, I don't go to school and put on a facade. This is me. No, when you go to school, you're going to put on a facade, either to do better. You want all A's, either to be the coolest in school, either to be quiet and just do what you got to do. But there is always a facade you have to put on before you get up, go to school, and do all of that. There is a facade. They saw right through my facade. It was always, oh, what's wrong? You know, because they genuinely care. Teachers don't usually do that. So at that point, it was just like, why not? Why hold all this in and explode when he's giving you an outlet? Perfect right here. Perfect. He's seen how it was, outgoing, laughing, goofy, you know. He used that. He utilized that and actually helped me along with other children in my community. And like, I really appreciate them for that. But as far as the arts to an art educator or whatever that was, I'm sorry, but it all starts with that first step. That very first step. It could be a half step, it could be a baby step, it could be 1 inch, 1 centimeter. As long as you're moving, you're trying, you're attempting. That's all that matters. That's all that really matters. Let them make that first step, and then it's up to them to keep going or not. You can lead the horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. He led us to the water, and I jumped the whole pool because I needed.
Student is ready.
I jumped the whole pool, the whole lane.
Hey, Victor.
Because we could talk about this all day long, but we know that Monte and Nolan have to hop off. But go ahead and say, LaRon and Stacy, if you wanted to add anything to that also.
Put an exclamation mark on it.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to veggie back for all the vegetarians and piggyback for all the people like me who eat meat on what Vic was saying. Oh, I'm sorry, Victor. What you were saying about the whole outcome based, because I tell people all the time, art is one of the few classes where you don't know what the assignment is going to look like. If I say what's 1 + 1 in the math class, I'm gonna, as a teacher, know what the answer is. But if I say draw a portrait, I'm not gonna know. If I tell my poetry kids to write a poem, I'm not gonna know. So it's one of those classes where you can truly express yourself.
We appreciate each and every one of you for spending time with us this evening. We definitely want to take Nolan Dean's charge forward and see what we can do on continuing this conversation in the future with all of you. So we're going to definitely stay in touch, and we're going to work with Arkansas PBS to make this an ongoing conversation. And with that, we want to leave the last words to Ray and Monte.
Money, you go first.
Why you always doing this, bro?
I just went first again last time, bro. It's your turn.
I'm tired, bro. All right, but look, I really want to thank everyone for inviting me here. I thank, Celero and Mr. Ozani for even coming to Helena, because out of all the places they could have went, it was far hit miss. But I mean, I don't have really any upcoming projects like you think I would, but the stuff that's coming is gonna be, I'm trying to put my heart and soul into it. One thing for advice, I like to tell everybody that's watching, just stick to what you have going. You don't have to be like everyone next to you. Like as far as your lyrics, as far as your image, as far as anything, you could be yourself. especially through music. And don't be afraid to be open, because that's really how I made it here. If I would have stayed the way Raven was describing, shut out, like I was at home, just didn't do anything, I wouldn't be here. So yeah, thanks to everybody for this.
Thank you, Monte.
I'm gonna go ahead and end it by saying, I will definitely say personal development, guys. Like, the business I'm in, I'm a digital entrepreneur. I'm actually in Chicago right now, far away from home. I just came from Orlando 2 weeks ago, loving the business, 19 years old, quit his job at FedEx. No more manual labor. I'm literally making money from my phone. But I would definitely say personal development goes a long way. You have to understand that you can't always stay where you are right now.
Exactly.
You can always have better. You can always do better. So why wait? Go ahead and start that progress now, because it is a very long journey. Like I said, I'm only 19. Back when we shot that, I probably was 15, 16. But I can say I am a better man, a bigger man, a stronger man, thanks to Celero, to Monte, Nolan, look, Nathan, Victor, because I can call y'all by y'all names now, Jess and Victor. It is definitely all love. Thank you. Like, it really has impacted me. So, impact.
Importance of education and educators.
Well, one thing that I want to say to both of you is that we would like to stay in contact with you, because we'd like to do a reunion with you guys for a couple of projects.
Okay.
Definitely sounds like something I'm into. Definitely.
Sure.
All right. Thank you guys for participating in this movie and this panel discussion. Definitely go to arkansaspbs.org so that you can look at the schedule. I think it comes on Sunday.
Casey, did you have any parting words or information that you wanted to give everyone?
All right. There she is.
I was getting ready to type something into the Obi window and pop over here to our Zoom window. No, it's Monday the 16th at 10 a.m. And I'm thrilled that this panel has moved some of our folks to want to create something more ongoing. I think we've got a lot more we can talk about. Arts education, after school program.
Shoot.
Say too is that we've all watched the documentary several times, and what I would have come in to say is just how amazing and truthful and vulnerable you all were in that documentary, and opening up to the filmmakers as they spent time with you. But I would say the same thing about this panel. You all have been so open and honest and engaging with us, and thank all of you very much, and thank everyone that's out there with us tonight.
Yes. Have a wonderful night and many blessings, you guys. We are proud of you, and just keep pushing. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Proud of you, Ray. Proud of you, Mike.
Thank you. Love you.